Right, we are going to move on straight away to Alison Brown, who will be sharing some more information about courageous advocacy.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's lovely to be with you again. As one or two of you may remember me, I joined you a few years ago for a head teachers conference on a very warm, sunny day, big contrast to now, when we were looking at collective worship, and that was in my previous role as a diocesan advisor for the Diocese of Derby. But since Christmas, I've been working with Christian Aid, particularly on their Global Neighbours scheme, and that's what I've come to talk with you about this afternoon. So forgive me while I fiddle around and share my screen so that I can share my slides. And next bit. Whilst this is just setting up, you'll also have to forgive me. I'm going to talk at you, which is not my preferred way of doing things at all. But I've got a lot of information in a short amount of time to tell you. Now, why is this not? Oh, yeah, it is getting there very slowly. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. Kerry, could you nod? Yes. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so as I said, I work for Christian Aid, and many of you will be familiar with that organisation. It's existed for 75 years. It is a charity that aims to alleviate where there is extreme need, especially through poverty, but equally it's there to campaign against that poverty ever existing in the first place. So it's a sort of dual purpose organisation. And part of that bigger picture of campaigning against the outrage, the scandal of poverty, is this Global Neighbours scheme, which was set up in partnership with the Church of England Education Office in 2018. It was launched then in response to some consultation that was commissioned by both organisations with church schools, saying, what is it that you would like? What's the best support that Christian Aid could give you? And schools came back and said they would like a systematic accreditation scheme. So we have ended up with Global Neighbours. And it's a really interesting partnership between the Church of England Education Office and Christian Aid, because they absolutely come together on this visionary statement that is at the heart of the Church of England vision for education, where it quotes Jesus saying, "I have come that you might have life, and life in all its fullness." And clearly that's what Christian Aid is campaigning for, that everybody on this planet, on this global family that we belong to, that we're committed to, as Tim has just reminded us of, everybody should have equal access to the good things of life so they can live well. So this partnership is key to the setting up of Global Neighbours. It is also in response to the new, the then new SIAM schedule that came out in 2018, which had this, the only new element of it was this term courageous advocacy. And this scheme is there to support schools in their exploration and their living out of courageous advocacy. Oops, let's just move on, sorry. So the Global Neighbours scheme is, its aim and purpose is to help schools create active global citizens. So this scheme will help schools help pupils increase their knowledge and understanding about how and why Christians want to change the world to one where everyone can live life fully, free from poverty. The scheme will increase understanding of the root causes of poverty and injustice. And it will also engage and empower pupils as agents of change in the transformation of our world. So Global Neighbours is designed to help schools take the next steps in courageous advocacy and to share their journey with others, be it local schools, the wider community, the church, the parental body, and maybe even a SIAMS inspector. Global Neighbours is for all schools, although clearly because of this underpinning vision, it aligns really well with the Christian ethos of church schools. It's not exclusively reliant on Christian Aid resources, although there are many that are good. So where there are other partnerships and other organisations that schools work with, that's great. it all adds to helping us form and develop global citizens. So things like diocesan companion links, other school international links, things like UNICEF's rights respecting schools, all those are part of this big picture of forming global citizens of the future. The accreditation framework for Global Neighbours works under 5 headings. And the first is really important, that of school leadership. We deliberately put it first because we want it to be a vision that is owned by the whole school, not just by one keen teacher, maybe stuck in year 2, who has got a real enthusiasm for it. But we want it to inform every leadership decision that is made, including at governance level, things about procurement and how we use the school grounds and accessing energy and so on, as well as actually planning how we support the professional development of teachers in this whole area of global education. So school leadership is crucial. And then from out of that plays teaching and learning. That's the powerhouse, the engine room for what we want pupils to be learning in the formal curriculum. We want them to make informed decisions about how they will then act. So that's a really important element. And at the lower level of bronze level of accreditation, we expect that to be in RE mainly, but going up through silver and gold, we wanted to see it increasingly across the whole curriculum, deliberately planned for. But of course, teaching and learning doesn't just take place in the curriculum, it also happens in collective worship. And there's a different framing for the learning going on there. There's the chance of deep reflection, one where we can repent and confess, one where we can lament and rejoice and celebrate. So Global Neighbours is wanting to see evidence of the global aspects of all that going on in collective worship and where pupils' spiritual development is attended to. Pupil participation is the 4th area we look at, and that's really important because we want all of this to be enabling pupils to be active global citizens, agents of change, not just carrying out what the senior leadership team might be important for this year, but actually for the pupils to decide what is important for this year and having it all informed by their learning. And then that last one about community engagement isn't just about having nice links with your community, it's deliberately focused on how the pupils share their learning and their action with the wider community, specifically to do with their global education. And as you can see, here it is, the partnership between the Church of England Education Office and Christian Aid is very sort of focused in the SIAM schedule. Global Neighbours does come into every aspect, all the strands of SIAMs, but particularly strand 3, where hope, aspiration, courageous advocacy are actually the language that's used. And you'll see in that second bullet point, where we look at how the Christian vision helps form courageous advocates for change. You'll also notice there's also moving beyond the bake sale. We're not knocking bake sales or raising money for charity. It's important, but far more important, or equally important, should I say, is the actually addressing the needs for needing to raise money for charity anyway. This world should be good enough not to be reliant on charity. Charity is like a sticking plaster on a wound. We would like to actually get rid of the wounds in the first place. So we want to move beyond the bake sale. We have found that that phrase courageous advocacy is a tricky one. Schools are struggling to really understand what it means, as are indeed sometimes diocesan education teams. And so in response to that, this document has been published by the Church of England Education Office in May of this year, and hopefully you have had sight of it. It was sent to all education teams, asking folks to then share it with schools. If you haven't received it, you can either nag your team or you can go off and do a Google search for it yourselves. It was written by Kaz Weir from Christian Aid, And we would say it's absolutely crucial reading, essential reading, because not only does it give you some practical outworkings of what we mean by courageous advocacy, it gives you the biblical, the Christian underpinning of why it's imperative on Christians to be courageous advocates. But of course, it's not just in fundraising. I've already made that point, that we want to see courageous advocates. It's in all these areas and many others beside. And I suppose the crucial ones there, well, actually all three are crucial. We want prayer to sit alongside speaking out as well as doing things. And this next slide gives you a few examples of the things that we come across as we look at schools' applications. You could probably add many more besides. I shall just be quiet for 1 minute and let you quickly skim read that list there. So some happy headlines to share with you. Since we started in April 2018, over 850 schools have registered. 110 of those have then become accredited. The accredited schools are representing 32 different Church of England dioceses. There are 3 Methodist schools amongst that number, 4 community schools, 3 infant and 1 middle school. And in all, this represents over 21,000 pupils involved so far. That's not just them being passively involved, this is agents of change, courageous advocates being developed, which we think really is good news. So let's just get to some of the nuts and bolts of how you go about finding out more about Global Neighbours. If you go to our website, you will find a link to Global Neighbours there. And we ask all schools to register. It costs you nothing. It gives you access to a whole suite of resources for free, which enables you to go on your journey, whether you choose to become accredited or not. The accreditation does cost money, and I'll come to that in a minute. But there are benefits to doing it anyway. There are benefits to doing it regardless of the words courageous advocacy being in SIAMs. This is part of good education. However, if you do register, you will be sent an email with a link to that registration page. And if you are deciding to then go on and be accredited, then please save that link, because you'll need to go back to it to actually send in your evidence for your award. Once a school has registered, you have access to these resources and a few more. The central one there is the key one. It's action plan and self-review tools. We encourage every school, regardless of where you consider yourself to be on your global education learning journey, to do a self-review, an audit of where you are now, where the gaps are, and this will help you form the steps of where you want to get to, which then in turn informs the action plan. So that is a key starting point. The action plan actually becomes part of the required submission when you do apply for an accreditation. And it would take at least 3 school terms to take effect, and may well take more, depending on where you are on your journey. So once you have decided you're going to go for the accreditation, what you then do is go back to that link you were sent and submit an evidence form that is part of the tools that you have access to when you register. And that evidence form, you are to write specific examples of what you are doing to have filled each of the criteria. And then you will submit it according to which of the levels you're going for. For bronze level, it's a paper-based or actually a web-based assessment. For silver and gold, it actually requires an assessor to come and do a half-day visit. Schools will be informed of the decision and hopefully sent their award. And each award lasts 3 academic years. Now, I did mention earlier about costs, and you will probably wanted to have known that right from the start. What will it cost me? Well, there's a variable charge depending on the size of your school. For a bronze level, it's between £60 and £100. And for silver and gold, it's between £250 and £400. And all that information is given on the website. And these charges are simply to cover the costs of the assessors. As I said, accreditation is optional, but if you go for it, it does bring benefits, such as the whole scheme is designed to help schools demonstrate and celebrate commitments to broadening educational horizons. The accreditation enables schools to structure their approach to this whole endeavour. And it also brings publicity and can strengthen links with the community and local organisations, as well as the local church. So there are real benefits to going for it. We would love to be inundated with applications from Chelmsford Diocese. So here is the whole application process laid out in a nice neat diagram. This is found in the Global Neighbours Handbook, which you can download for free when you go onto the Global Neighbours website. And yes, I won't go over this, it's just so that you know that it's spelt out clearly there. Now, there are other resources to help you in this whole journey. Obviously, Christian Aid have got a whole range of resources that will help your pupils engage in collective worship and in lessons, but the whole point is to help them think deeply and to give them ideas for living differently. But it's not just Christian Aid. You can go to somewhere like prayer spaces in schools, and they have got a series of prayer spaces designed with justice in mind. And they have developed these in partnership with Christian Aid. And I love them because they do encourage children to take action, but also to take part in contemplation. And I would argue we need both to be able to sustain this, this big challenge that is ahead of us, of challenging poverty and inequality in our world. And then another Christian Aid resource that you might not be familiar with, the Big Justice Story Sack. It was developed with children in a church setting in mind, but I think it's easily translatable to a school setting. You are asked to make a donation towards it simply to cover the cost of production, and materials are high quality, including a high quality mat. It sits alongside and augments Understanding Christianity in RE very well, and it could also provide a really rich theme of thinking and engagements in collective worship. And then the final couple of resources I just want you to be aware of. In the Grove Education series, there are two that particularly would help in your thinking and journey. One is about the Young Leadership Award, which I know Chelmsford Diocese is well engaged with. But this one is helping think about leadership and social action in young people. And then the other one is one that I co-wrote with, looking at global links that dioceses and schools can have. So just be aware of those two. So we at Christian Aid, and I know at the Church of England Education Office, are excited about the opportunities that Global Neighbours offers to schools and pupils as we work together to inspire a new generation of global citizens to challenge injustice and confront poverty. So for more information, please do visit the website that's on that slide. And if you have any queries, please do send an email to that email address. But I think that is it from me. So I shall stop sharing my screen because I think Carrie has allowed a little bit of time if anybody has any questions that they want to ask.
Thank you very much, Alison. We do have a few minutes now where if there are any questions, it would be a good time to ask them. If you have a question, if you could use your hands up function, that will help me spot anybody.
Sorry, I don't know how to use the hands up function, but if I hold my hand up, will that do?
Waving works as well.
I listened intently to that, and it was all very interesting, but there's a few things that confuse me a little bit. So if courageous advocacy is so hard to understand, why did you choose it as your strapline?
Well, actually, I don't think we chose it as our strapline. I think it was the Church of England Education Office put it into the SIAMs, and Christian Aid is now working to try and help schools unpack what it means. But just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think hard and challenge is a really good thing in education. I would like people to grapple with these big ideas. So forgive me if you think it's difficult, but actually it's not massively difficult. It just takes a bit of time to get your head around it.
I just think something a bit more buzzy that is more related to children.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Would have a better impact.
Yeah. Courageous advocacy. Yeah.
It's the impact that you're looking for.
Indeed. And courageous advocacy, I would say, is the language we use with adults. But even still, I would make an argument that children, when it's explained well to them, can understand that phrase too. But I do take your point. It could be more buzzy.
Thanks.
Thank you, John. Any further questions at all?
Well, that's a relief.
Thank you so much, Alison, for that really informative presentation this afternoon.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. What we're going to do next this afternoon is put you into some breakout rooms, and that will give you an opportunity to discuss this very challenging idea of courageous advocacy together, to share what might already be going on in your schools. And perhaps some of you have got experience of using the Global Neighbours accreditation scheme. So again, do chat about that if you have. So I will just take a moment to put you into your breakout groups.
If it's possible for me to be in the same group as Chris Jarmaine, I would appreciate it, please.
I'll see if I can move you, John, if you're not already there.
Thank you.
John, you should have a message to join a room, hopefully room 1.
Yeah, shall I press that?
Yes, that'll be perfect. That you should find Chris there. Okay. Excellent. Right, I am now going to hand over to Doug from the Saffron Walden Teaching Alliance to talk to you a bit more about the Church of England MPQs.
Hello, good afternoon. Sorry, I was just checking I wasn't on mute. Thank you ever so much for having me this afternoon. Really grateful for the opportunity to talk to you all. Just going to share my screen, and hopefully that's come up for you now. So yeah, thank you, Carrie. That's wonderful. Yeah, so as I said, I'm Deputy Head at Saffron Walden County High School. I'm also the Director of the Saffron Teaching School Hub. There are 87 hubs across the country, and they've been rolled out nationally. And essentially, 2 of our responsibilities are the Early Careers Framework, which I know some of you as head teachers will be involved in with your ECTs, and also the provision of national professional qualifications. Now, we, as the Saffron Hub, are working in partnership with the Chelmsford Diocese across the whole of the Chelmsford Diocese in being the accredited provider for the Church of England MPQs, as you'll be aware. These are reformed, so there are 6 MPQs. Now, there are 6 national providers, but this afternoon what I'd like to do is talk to you about what's different about the Church of England MPQs, what the offer is, and also in terms of how your school can become involved in terms of participants, but also hopefully providing for facilitators. So, as Tim mentioned earlier, there are two really key distinguishing features between the Church of England MPQs. The first thing is obviously the core identity, the rationale behind all of them. And, you know, central to this is the called, connected and committed document that Tim referred to, in providing really the whole nature of you know, the work that we're in as a profession, and that it being a life-giving and lifelong vocation. And that's on top of what you would expect it to be in terms of being an evidence-informed set of qualifications. The second thing that is a distinguishing feature around the Church of England MPQs is really the provision of coaching to support people who participate. It's the only MPQ out of all of the national providers where there is a coaching element to participants on the programme. So I'll skip across the detail of this, but if you look at the bottom into the practice element, during the, and this is repeated 4 times across the programme, there are opportunities for participants in the MPQs to have expert-led coaching from coaches who are experts in instructional coaching, but also Church of England coaches who really sort of are au fait and share the beliefs and the values that participants on these programs will be following. So moving on, you can see on the left-hand side the titles of these 6 MPQs. The 3 at the top are, if you like, the middle leader MPQs. Leading teaching is essentially leading a key stage or being the head of subject. The leading behaviour and culture, you can work that one out there. The leading teaching development is for mentoring, and obviously mentoring is a key element of teaching that is huge at the moment, particularly with the rollout of the ECF. And then you can see, and many of you will be familiar with the senior leadership, the MPQH and the executive leadership, you know, around that. So those are the 6 MPQs. Now, there is one additional element with the Church of England offer, which is the additional support offer. And this is for new head teachers who are doing the MPQ. There is a recognition that I think we all understand, you know, being a head teacher is extraordinarily demanding, but it's been doubly so in the COVID environment. And so, as well as the opportunity to participate in the MPQ, there is an additional support offer there as part of this. So just in terms of cost and funding, you can see the 3 specialist or middle leader MPQs, the leading teaching and the behaviour and culture. There is a charge for those. The leading teaching development, in other words, the mentoring one, is fully funded, so that's effectively gratis. On the right-hand side, you can see if you like, the charges for the leadership MPQs. The MPQH, in recognition of the fact that you know, headship is facing challenges around recruitment, but also retention in a way that is perhaps never faced before, particularly in the light of COVID, is fully funded. So that is, again, being provided gratis. And there are scholarships, and I know there is a small number of schools within the Chelmsford Diocese who qualify by nature of the fact they've got 30% of their cohorts who are PPG or pupil premium. And these programs are starting on the November. There is a second cohort in February as well. And these 2 cohorts will be running each year. We're also looking for facilitators, and we're looking for facilitators from within your schools to lead and deliver these programs. And you can see there if you like, the time commitment for that, and particularly if you see the behaviour and the culture one there. In terms of the total number of hours, in terms of delivery, you can see that at the bottom for the lead facilitator and also the assistant facilitator. So if you do have any members of staff who you feel would be great facilitators amongst your senior leaders, we'd really welcome the opportunity to work with those people, and for those people to be you know, trained as facilitators. There is, of course, remuneration. You can see the remuneration at the top there for those facilitators, and you know, that would obviously go straight to your school. And as I mentioned at the bottom, there's a November and a February cohort. Now, in terms of who to contact, you can certainly contact me as the director of the Teaching School Hub, also Lorraine Chedzoy, our administrator, just at the bottom there. And equally, if you're interested in finding out more, you can click onto or you can simply Google Saffron Teaching School Hub, click on CPD, and you'll find the MPQs there, but the direct link is there. So more than happy to answer any questions if anyone has got any. Yeah, that's me. Sorry, I've overrun, Carrie. 6 minutes 45. I was 45 seconds longer than this morning. My apologies.
No problem at all. Does anybody have any questions for Doug? Heather.
Hi, Doug. This morning you mentioned the closing dates. I don't think you've mentioned those this afternoon, have you?
Yeah, thank you. Really important. Yeah.
No, that's okay.
No, so for the November cohort, the closing dates for participants is the 8th of October. So if you do, in your PM or your appraisal conversations, you're thinking of that, you need your member of staff really to have made their mind up and to have submitted an application by the 8th of October. In terms of facilitators, we're sort of, if people would like to contact me as quickly as possible, that would be great. The training for facilitators has started, but we are working to ensure that if people can watch the recordings, they can do the other sessions, if you like, participate in the other sessions, and they will be trained as facilitators. So
excuse me, do you know a cut-off date for the February application yet?
That hasn't been set as yet, Heather, so
okay.
I think we've got some slack on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Doug at all? No.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks very much for the chance to talk. Nice to meet you all.
Right, we're going to move on now to reflect on collective worship and the statement of entitlement. So I'm going to hand over to Helen.
Thank you, Carrie. So the Church of England engaged with diocesan advisors to create the statement of entitlement and expectation for collective worship. As you can see from the front page there, the inclusive, invitational and inspiring words are larger. And I think that's because this document is really encouraging schools to really reflect on those three words and how they address collective worship within it. This document aligns itself to the Church of England Vision for Education and to the SIAM schedule. It's a 4-page document and can be accessed through the website. So the purpose of it is to explore national expectations and the entitlement of pupils and parents for what they can expect in a church school. And it seeks to challenge and guide you, to encourage school community reflection, and to start the discussion on the unique meaning of an encounter through worship in each school community. This document is for teachers, governors, parents, pupils and adults in the school community, as well as for inspectors and clergy and others who visit the school. Church of England schools have always been committed to very high quality collective worship and valuing it as a way in which they can foster a sense of community and express their school vision. And collective worship is much more than moments of awe and wonder. And this document actually says it should aim to be the unique heartbeat of the school, offering pupils and adults an opportunity to encounter faith by engaging in conversations about God, both as individuals and together. The short document has a number of paragraphs. The first paragraph at the introduction draws from the vision of education and refers to the encounters that pupils and adults have wherever they are on their journey of faith and belief. The second is a brief paragraph on the law and the requirement for collective worship in church schools to be mainly or wholly of a Christian character. And then almost a page of the document unpacks what inclusive, invitational and inspiring collective worship is. Moving on to aims and objectives and provision, which I think would be helpful for schools if they're rewriting their collective worship policies. This document also has a paragraph about the importance of developing staff expertise and knowledge, giving them access to good resources, and for the governing body to be involved in monitoring with strong systems and meaningfully engage pupil voice. It also talks about the importance of visitors, the importance of a staff member being responsible for collective worship, and making sure that your policy is publicly available. Finally, it talks about the growing faith agenda, which is the work that the Church of England is involved in with developing links between home, church and school. This is not part of the SIAM schedule, but it is encouraging schools and churches to look at how they can have an impact of collective worship in those environments. So this document is encouraging us to reflect on some questions. It's encouraging us to think about whether your collective worship is an expression of your school's vision and values. Is your worship inclusive of all faiths? Does it assume faith? Do you expect consent, or can those attending dissent? Is worship done to, or are there meaningful contributions from the whole school community, and particularly from pupils? Have you considered your use of music and liturgy? And have you considered how your school's worship motivates action and inspires courageous advocacy? And you might like to reflect on some of these questions as we go into our breakout rooms. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Helen. So we are going to go into breakout rooms in a minute. Does anybody have any immediate questions they'd like to ask Helen before I put you into breakout rooms? No, okay, I will pop you into your breakout rooms, give you an opportunity to just discuss some of those questions that Helen has been sharing with us. Okay.
Harry, may I just say something? Can I just say thank you to Claire, who was in the middle of speaking about her school. So thank you. I'm sorry we didn't get to hear, not Claire, Laura, sorry, at the end of your what you were saying about your school, but it sounds really great. And you're obviously focused on what you're doing, but I would advocate that document and have a look and see whether it could help you.
John, do I see your hand up as well?
Yeah, just a quick question for Helen based on her previous comment. I think you're absolutely right. It's good for the heads to be pushing upwards to the clergy of the local churches in the respect that you just said. But do you feel the diocese do enough top-down stuff as well in terms of helping the churches with understanding the schools and what needs to be done?
We do have all new curates on their training do work with the education team in a module about what it means to work in schools. So that's part of the new curate training. We do try, the education team do try and link out to the other departments within the diocese.
My question came of ignorance, not of challenge.
Yeah, yeah.
I just wondered what, if anything, you did to help the poor vicars sit in the middle of the heads in the diocese, and I wonder whether they feel either neglected. It would be great if they felt squeezed, but I suspect they probably don't get enough from either direction.
Yeah. Well, we do, and also advisors, when they visit your school, sometimes work with the vicars or the incumbents as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You can also get your vicar for the princely sum of £3.95 a copy of this booklet that I produced a little while ago, How to Craft Collective Worship, which is particularly written for those who are visitors rather than members of staff in schools. And it talks about collective worship, some do's and don'ts, and the background and the context. And also Alison, who was with us before, has written one, How to See Collective Worship Anew. So you might furnish those who are regular visitors to your school, including the clergy, with a copy each of those.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we're going to move on now to our governance update from Mike.
Thank you very much. I'll just add to that previous conversation that do encourage your incumbents, your ex officio foundation governors, to come to various courses that are run by the diocese, particularly for governors, the SIAMS one, for example, which we ran last term, because they will pick up things like the entitlement document through those sort of opportunities. Anyway, it's great to see so many people this afternoon, and I think quite a number of chairs of governors, or at least you may be waiting to be re-elected, and if so, well done for standing again. Well done if you've been elected already because you've had your first meeting, or if you're a brand new chair of governors, then particularly welcome to the role, and to make sure you are aware that there are a whole range of things, especially or including the fact that I'm willing to have conversations in a kind of more mentoring role, if you like, with new chairs of governors to support them in their role in their early days or years. So I was really struck a couple of weeks ago when Bishop Gully took her seat, or was seated, at Chelmsford Cathedral. She spoke, she gave a sermon, and I thought, as I reflected on that sermon, in some ways she's speaking as a chair of governors, or chair of the diocese and all its various mechanisms. And she gave us 3 words that I think you do well, we do well, I do well to reflect on as we think about navigating through whatever lies ahead as chairs of governors and head teachers for that matter. And the first word was dialogue, and she emphasised the need to listen deeply, and I think that's really important. The second word was to trust, and she suggested that out of good dialogue there can be born healthier relationships. And the third was vulnerability, and that was really fascinating, because she went on to say, though this seat, her bishop's seat, may be a symbol of power and authority, as the one who sits in it, she says, I am a human being, weak and frail. My power and authority are in truth very limited. There's very little I can enforce. I don't have all the answers. I don't see clearly the way ahead. I'll make mistakes and I'll disappoint. And yet, she finished, through the example of Jesus Christ, whose vulnerability on the cross became his greatest moment of victory, I know that we need not fear our own vulnerabilities. It's worth reflecting on those words, and if you want to look at the sermon as a whole, it's not long. It's on the chelmsford.anglican.org website. You can look at it there and or download it as well. So just some thoughts really about being chair, that as we go forward into this academic year. Now, there are a number of things we're doing to support you in your vulnerabilities, in dialogue and in trust. Already there is a list of courses that you can engage in. The details of each of them are on our website, and you can sign up and book into those courses. The last one on the list, if you can't see that because it's in a small square, if you go to speaker view, it'll fill your screen. Visiting your local school. We've been asked to do this by a group of governors who met in governance chat just a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago, and that will look at monitoring collective worship and other things in relation to the SIAMS inspection. So that means I should mention governance chat, which is the first Friday lunchtime of each month during term time. Just an opportunity as you eat your sandwich, drink your cup of tea or whatever, to engage with a few other governors. And the conversation goes in whatever direction we want to take it as a group. And sometimes we come out of it with a number of things. So last time the session on visits came out of that. And then I sent a relatively lengthy email to all the people that participated with details of various documents that had just been released by DFE, by Church of England Education Office, to bring people into line, as it would, give them the opportunity to check out some of those really important things that we can sometimes overlook. If you like that email, just drop me a line. My email address is to my right, msimmons@chelmsford.anglican.org. But I have to say, I'm most excited by something that we didn't really expect to go as well as it has. In just a week's time, the National Virtual Governors Conference will take place. And that was an idea back in June. I was given the task of putting it together and running it. And we've got this great lineup of people who are going to speak at it. And as of this moment, because I can check it online, I've got 1,049 governors who've registered to be part of that event. So if by the end of this meeting I can at least have 1,050, I'd be very pleased. And we'll carry on taking bookings over the next week before it takes place. So it's online. And you need that link just in the middle of the screen, bit.ly/CLV-Govs, to access the booking for it and join with us. And then the following day, we've partnered with the organisation Governors for Schools. Now, interestingly, as you can see on screen, they're running a conference the whole of next week with a whole range of fascinating governance sessions, and you'll see them there. And if you've got time during your day to pick out the 1 or 2 or 6 that really meet your needs or will help you in your thinking and training, then please do access that directly through Governors for Schools conference, and you can Google that and find the details of the conference. We're excited because we've been given a session on church school governance, becoming and being a church school governor. So please do, if you can, spread that message around your governing board so that people know that's there to access. I would say Governors for Schools and Inspiring Governance are really good sources of recruiting governors for your governing boards. Now, I know I hear all the time people saying, didn't help me, didn't find anybody, didn't work for me. But I also hear lots of stories of people who are being recruited through both those organisations, and it's worth Googling them and using their services to find governors. So thank you for listening. I hope that gives you just a flavour of some of the exciting things. Looking forward to seeing or having you as many of you as possible at that conference next Wednesday. Still waiting for that one to take me to 1,050. Carrie.
Thank you. That almost brings us to the end of our session this afternoon. Before we do finish though, we just want to draw your attention to the fact that the SIAMS schedule has been updated and it comes into force from this September. So if you go to the Church of England SIAMS website, if you put that into Google, it will come up for you, and you will see there's a web page there and it's got the new SIAMS schedule. It's also got an annotated version, so you can see exactly what changes have been made to the document. So that's a really useful document to look at. So we would urge you to go and familiarise yourself with that. In terms of scheduling of SIAMS inspections, the SIAMS national team are producing a list of schools that they aim to inspect this academic year. They always have the caveat that, you know, things could change, but that they're the list of schools that they're aiming to inspect. That was published today. So on that very same website I've already mentioned, the list of schools who could be due inspection this academic year is available. So do check that out so you can see if you are on it or not. There are some changes in the inspection in terms of expectations around producing a case for excellence, in that they're asking schools to no longer produce that and send it off prior to inspection. The conversation that needs to happen around excellence will happen on the day with the head teacher and the inspector, but your advisors will be able to share much more detailed information with you around that. It'd be good to draw your attention as well to our SIAMS workshops. Some of you will have been to those before. We used to run them pre-COVID. We're going to restart them this year. The first one is on Tuesday, the 19th of October. So do sign up for those via our website. The morning will be input just as it was before, so there'll be much more information about the updates. The afternoon will be time for you to work with other members of senior leadership team or a governor on your self-evaluation summary form. That is everything that we wanted to update you on this afternoon. We really hope it's been a useful session. We have recorded this afternoon's session, so that will be available online. So if you have anybody else you need or want to share it with, you can. That is everything. So have a wonderful rest of the week and rest of the term. And I know some of you will be seeing you all very soon over the coming weeks and months. Thank you.